I wanted to share with everyone that the city of Goodyear is celebrating its 75th anniversary right now. The city was incorporated on November 19th, 1946. So in 2021, we are 75 years old. And for this anniversary, we have been celebrating all year with different activities and programs. We have a big festival planned for the actual anniversary date on November 19th. But one of the things that we really wanted to do was give our mayor and council an opportunity to share with the public their thoughts about Goodyear turning 75. Because, anniversaries oftentimes are a lot about looking at our past, but it's a really important point for us to really start dipping in, looking at our future and where we're going. And that's what's so important with our mayor and council. And so for that, this evening, we have a message from our mayor, Goodyear Mayor Georgia Lord. And Rosie, could you please share that with the group?
See if those ladies, you could see them. They chose to be seen. No, it's not. It's not you. It's her.
Hey, Rosie, I don't think you have the sound playing on our end for the video.
She's not. She doesn't.
This is so tacky.
Yeah.
Is that going? Is sound going on that end?
I don't hear any sound, Rosie.
All right, we're gonna try that again.
I think they can look forward to having a quality of life, but also being able to sustain themselves and stay here in the city. And I think what I'd like to see is to raise a family. They get educated in the state of Arizona. They get a job, have a family, and so you have that connectivity. Not like military family, my children were all over the United States, And so once the children left home, well then we've sort of lost them in a sense. But keep the family around you, then that's your heritage, that's your strength. So that's what I'd like to see for the people.
Thank you, Rosie, and thank you to Mayor Georgia Lord for her message about what we're thankful for and what we're reflecting on as we celebrate our 75th anniversary. Each month we'll have a message from one of our council members, and this month just happened to be our mayor. So I am excited to be here with you tonight. I get the fortune of introducing our speaker. This evening, we're joined by Alexandra Papazan, and she's with Ballet Arizona, and she's their education and community engagement manager. And I'm going to go through Alexandra's credentials, but I wanted to share that, I'm very fortunate I get the time to be able to work with Alexandra over the past few years because she's very instrumental in bringing our Ballet Under the Stars program to the city of Goodyear. And that's one of our really our favorite programs in the city that we do offer through arts and culture. But Alexandra, she is a nonprofit arts professional. She's worked with a diverse group of organizations to establish partnerships, create sustainable programming, and serves the greater good through education and community engagement activities. Alexandra believes that the success of future generations is dependent upon the integration of arts and culture in existing educational and business models because of the rich contextual learning experiences they can provide. Since joining Ballet Arizona, Alexandra has brought structure, quality, and vision to the Education and Community Engagement Department. Alexandra holds a Bachelor of Arts in Business with a concentration in communications from Arizona State University, as well as Alexandra being a trained dancer, and she's received her professional dance training from the School of Ballet Arizona, Pittsburgh Ballet Theater, and Butler University. So Alexandra comes with a wealth of experience and knowledge in the world of ballet. And this evening, she's going to be sharing a history about George Balanchine, who really is the international pioneer of dance and really paved the way for ballet and ballet in the United States that we see. And so with that, I'd like to turn this over to Alexandra. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Guyleen. It's a pleasure to be here. We always love working with the city of Goodyear. Ballet Under the Stars is one of our most fun programs every year, so I'm happy to be here tonight. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. I do have a presentation for this evening, so let me just go ahead and set that up for you. And I'll make sure that I'm in presentation mode. Okay, so when I was asked to put together this hot coffee lecture, I was asked to sort of look at ballet from a period and perspective of the city of Goodyear's 75 years. And so as you all know, ballet is it's a very old art form. It's over 400 years old, and there's a lot of history built up in the older reaches of its history. The last 100 or so years, ballet has been sort of in flux, in a transition between, some of the more classical traditions, and it's becoming something brand new. So looking at the last 75 years has been really, really interesting to do. We're going to hear a lot about George Balanchine. We're going to hear about Ballet Arizona's history. We were incorporated in the last 75 years, and we'll hear a little bit about Ebe Anderson, who is definitely instrumental in both worlds, in the Balanchine world and in Ballet Arizona's world. So we're going to look at ballet from the last 75 years when Goodyear was a city. Guyleen gave me a fantastic introduction. Thank you so much. Just a little bit more about me. I am an Arizonan through and through. I was not born here. I was born in Manhasset, New York, but I've lived here, for the majority of my life. Moved here when I was 5 years old. I think I can call myself an honorary Arizonan now, if not a native. And Arizona, I love it here, and I don't ever want to move away. So looking at our time frame, the presentation tonight is going to be divided up into 3 distinct histories, and they all sort of converge and coalesce with Ballet Arizona's incorporation in the later part. But the first part we're going to be talking about is the period of time between 1946 and 1983, which is the latter part of George Balanchine's life, and when he was, bringing ballet to America. The second part we'll go into is from 1980 to 1996. This is Ebe Anderson's foray into American dance, and sort of how he ended up here in Arizona and ended up heading up Ballet Arizona. And then the last part we'll look at is from 1986 to 2021, which is the history of Ballet Arizona, when we were incorporated here as a company, and all of the twists and turns in our journey that we've come across until now. And I should mention too, if you have any questions for those of you who are participating on the Zoom call tonight, please type those into the chat, and please make sure that Rosie can Rosie can see those, so you can stop at any point. We can talk about anything you like. I know that history can be quite dense sometimes, and jumping back and forth between these time periods can get confusing. So if there's anything you want to chat about, please feel free to type it into the comments section and let me know, and we can take a pause and dive into anything further. But without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and start into George Balanchine. He is the father of American ballet. For those of you who don't know, he is really responsible for bringing ballet to America. Before he came here and before he settled here, ballet did tour through America, but we did not have our own ballet companies. We didn't have any ballet schools, and he is really credited as the person who established it here in our country. He's known for being a tireless innovator. He's one of the most important choreographers of the 20th century. I hope that by the time we're done talking about him, you'll understand more about what that means. It can be a very ambiguous statement. But when you see his ballets, it's really apparent how ahead of his time he was, while also understanding he did a really good job of understanding how to reconcile the classicism of traditional ballet with the modernism of the feelings, the ideals of the time, and where he thought ballet was going. He's famed for saying, "God creates and I assemble." He is a master of the human body. So George Balanchine really knows how to create dance that is compelling, that is beautiful, that is at times ugly, but you can't help but look at it, and you can't help but relate to it, because he understands the human body so well. He really, jumping ahead, he ushered ballet into the neoclassical era. So there was, distinct periods of time in ballet, just like you have in any art. There's sort of, some discrepancies about where people believe they classify those things on the time frame, but you have classical ballet, you have romantic ballet, which is the longer skirts, and they were just beginning point work then. You have the Baroque period, that was just when they were starting to create dance for concerts. And then you have this neoclassical era that's what Balanchine was bringing into the art form. What neoclassical is, it was a rebellion against all of the trappings of concert dance. So when I say concert dance, I mean dance that is performed on a stage in a theater. And by trappings, I mean costuming, sets and scenery, story even. Balanchine was of the mind that ballet was really encumbered at that point with all of these. Oh, excuse me, 1 second. I'm in a room where the lights flash off. Let me just scoot over so I can wave at them every now and again. Okay. Balanchine was in a time period where he thought that ballet was encumbered by all of these different stage elements. And he thought that the art form was actually getting lost, lost underneath all the heavy costuming, lost in the fact that there was a dense story that we had to follow. A lot of the storybook ballets have this, we're set in a time period where there's fairies and there's an evil queen. And he thought that all of that was overshadowing the real true beauty of dance. And so when he was a dancer, he was really interested in choreographing dance for the sake of dance, but not only for that. He was interested in bringing back the beauty of the dance itself. And he really tried to explore and find out how much you could say with just a body on a stage in a leotard and tights and with some lighting to make it look beautiful. He wasn't interested in adding in all of these excess elements to sort of cloud the vision of the dance. In his time, he was impressively prolific. He choreographed over 400 works in his lifetime, which is an immense body of work. He just had dance pouring out of him. And it wasn't even just neoclassical dance, as we'll get to later on in the presentation. He actually choreographed, for Hollywood. He choreographed for the circus at one point. He was interested in choreography and how things, people, bodies, animals move. he is celebrated for his contributions to the art form across the world. And today it is an extreme honor for a ballet company to be able to perform his work. It's governed by the George Balanchine Trust. And there are lots and lots of hurdles and things you have to make sure that your company has in order to get the blessing of the trust to perform these works. So let's move on here. I just like to take a note of his picture here. He was a woodworker, so he enjoyed woodworking on the side, which is something that is little known about him. But he was known for working with wood in his off time from dance, which, after choreographing 400 works, how much off time can you have? But that was something that he liked to do. He was also a very joyous and lighthearted man. So, a lot of his pictures, you're going to see this stern, sort of focused, intense look. He was an intense human being. He was an artist first and foremost, but from the people that loved him and knew him the best, they all talk of him as being this joyful, exuberant, lighthearted person. So he has his endearing side too. So looking at this time frame here, we are starting in 1946. This is by no means the start of Balanchine. This is just the start of Balanchine in America. So a very brief transition. George Balanchine was a dancer from Russia. He defected with some friends on a trip through Europe, and they actually became dancers in the Ballet Russe, which was a huge ballet company that was bringing together all of these different artists from all over the world, not even just dance. They were bringing together painters and designers and musicians. Stravinsky was part of the Ballet Russe. Coco Chanel was a brief part at one point. Picasso did sets. There were just so many artists traveling to this hub to create art together. And it was a really innovative incubator for him. And that's where he really tested out his choreography. So he was a dancer, but as a member of the Ballet Russe, he danced a little, but mostly choreographed on their dancers. And so after coming to the United States, he met a person named Lincoln Kirstein. And Lincoln Kirstein was a businessman. He was an American businessman, and he had seen Balanchine perform and choreograph all across Europe. He followed him. He was a super fan. And so Lincoln Kirstein and Balanchine hatched this idea that they were going to bring ballet to America. Kirstein really wanted Balanchine to come and settle in America. And Balanchine is notorious for saying, yes, but first a school. So that was his primary goal was, I will come to America. I will choreograph there, but I need to establish a school first, because the kinds of ballets that he was doing and the kinds of work that he was expecting his dancers to do was very intense. And he said, I need to be able to teach these dancers how to perform, how to dance at the level that I need them to, if I'm going to be expected to choreograph and put them on the stage in dances that I'm making. So he and Lincoln Kirstein created a school in America called the School of American Ballet. It was just prior to 1946. They, had one performance. It was Serenade, which is George Balanchine's most famous ballet. And he taught his students how to perform on the stage with that ballet. So, if you Google Serenade, and we actually just performed it the last couple of weekends, you'll see that it's not any sort of flashy. You're not going to see, extreme turns or jump sequences. There's no crazy lifts in there. It's just a beautiful ballet set to beautiful music by Tchaikovsky. The dancers are dressed in baby blue. The stage is awash in some very, beautiful light. And it's a way for him to teach the dancers how to perform. So he choreographed that dance. It was his first dance ever choreographed on American soil, on American dancers. And that's the significance of that. So it's his most well-known ballet, also his best beloved ballet by dancers and audiences alike. I do encourage you to check that out on YouTube. I think there are full versions of it. It's enchanting. So after that, Balanchine had a nomadic period. So before they were building a company, there was a period of time when the war happened, and Lincoln Kirstein actually went overseas to be a part of a division that was in charge of protecting cultural works overseas during the war. And so Balanchine actually, during that time period, he traveled around the United States. He picked up various jobs here and there, and choreographed for the Goldwyn Follies. And he, really just made sure that he was keeping his artistry alive, while not necessarily choreographing for ballet. And then, in 1946, he reunites with Lincoln Kirstein. In 1948, the New York City Ballet was born. He and Kirstein managed to get it off the ground, funded, and, they found a home for it. In 1980, Ebe Anderson joined the company. And then in 1983, Balanchine passed away. So this period from 46 to 83, he did a lot of work. He managed to get the New York City Ballet up and running with Kirstein. He managed to bring a lot of famous dancers here to the United States, mentor and tutor them, and grow them to technically proficient and beautiful dancers. Ebe Anderson was one of his last proteges who he brought here from overseas in 1980, and then just 3 years later, he passed away. So we'll dive a little bit more into that post-war reunion with Lincoln Kirstein. The photo here on the left is Lincoln Kirstein on the left and Balanchine on the right. They're having a very intense talk, probably about budgets or, some sort of logistics. But they were very good together. So again, Balanchine established the School of American Ballet in 1933, and the war then took them on different paths. Balanchine went to Hollywood and the Ballet Russe de Monte Carlo. So, after the Ballet Russe had disbanded and Balanchine came here, some dancers decided that they would try to revive it and bring it back in some sort of second form. And they created Renee Blum's The Ballet Russe de Monte Carlo. It was definitely not as successful as it was the first time. It just didn't have, the right leadership. It didn't have the right, the right time period, the right people involved. But he did go back and sort of pay respects to his beginnings there and choreograph with them. Kirstein went to the Monuments, Fine Arts, and Archives unit. And again, he was responsible for making sure to preserve cultural works during the war. And in 1946, he and Balanchine reunited and formed Ballet Society. So this was the earliest version of the New York City Ballet. It was a subscription-based company. You had to subscribe to it. They performed, and they, managed to get the New York City Ballet off the ground. And Kirstein says of Balanchine, the only justification I have to enable Balanchine to do exactly what he wants to do in the way that he wants to do it. So this is the kind of person that every artist wants and needs in their corner. Somebody who's just like on board 1,000%, whatever you want to do artistically, you're doing it. Tell me what it is, I'll make it happen. That was Kirstein for Balanchine. So after Ballet Society, the New York City Ballet was born. And Ballet Society, Balanchine choreographed a few pieces, the Four Temperaments being one of them. This is another one of his famous pieces that is performed to this day. And it was the beginning of a creative awakening for him. On April 28th in 1948, Balanchine choreographed Orpheus, and that premiere secured Ballet Society a permanent home. An executive saw Orpheus, and on the strength of that performance said, you are coming to City Center and you're gonna live here. And so that was very fortuitous. And it also speaks volumes to the genius that Balanchine's choreography was. On the strength of just one performance, one show, without any sort of, talking and dealing beforehand, this man said, I think it was Morton Baum. He said, you're coming here and you're going to dance here. On October 11th in 1948, the New York City Ballet produced its first program at City Center. It had Orpheus, obviously, a piece called Concerto Barocco, and Symphony in C. So all three of these pieces are still performed to this day, and all three are very strong works in the repertoire. The New York State Theater, the David H. Koch Theater, was designed to Balanchine's specifications later. So that's a little piece of modern trivia. That was actually, designed exactly to Balanchine's specifications when they built that theater, so that his company would be able to perform in it the way he wanted it to perform. And this acceptance into City Center and this designing of the David H. Koch Theater marked a turning point in Balanchine's career and the trajectory of ballet in America. So, we did have ballet appearing on the West Coast in San Francisco. So I would say that, across the two coasts, New York City and San Francisco were the two hubs where ballet was beginning to take its hold in America. But Balanchine cementing itself as the New York City Ballet at City Center was just the propulsion that the rest of the art form needed to explode across the country. And then the picture on the left, this is a photo from Serenade, which was that ballet that Balanchine first choreographed here on his students at the School of American Ballet. These are professional New York City ballet dancers, though. Balanchine's notable contributions, he has many. He was very prolific. Here's him with one of his dancers on the left. He is best known for Serenade. Again, you'll see that he's best known for that ballet. It really exemplifies his choreographic style. It exemplifies his mastery of putting movement to music. And it will really give you a flavor of everything else that he tried to do after it, because it gets to various different shades of challenging for audiences in his later works. But watching Serenade and understanding where he started and what he was looking at will give you the education you need to continue to dive into Balanchine's works and see some of his more challenging works. He's also very known for his 50-year partnership with Igor Stravinsky, the musician and composer. He and Stravinsky actually met in his time at the Ballet Russe. So Balanchine was actually choreographing to Stravinsky all the way back then in the Ballet Russe. And they continued to choreograph and compose together and work together throughout their lifetimes. And there are several Balanchine ballets that have Stravinsky composed scores. It's very it is challenging to watch those because, the genius of Stravinsky and the genius of Balanchine, while they fit together, they're a lot to digest. You really have to be paying attention because the music is so driving. It's got so many forms that are non-traditional. That's the same for Balanchine's works when he was choreographing to Stravinsky. Balanchine was exemplary at making the music visible on stage. So he really did a good job of, absent of a story, making sure that you saw the music when his dancers were dancing. So if you can imagine what looking at Stravinsky might look like, there's a lot happening, and it really deserves more than one watch to go through everything so that you can really absorb everything that Balanchine put into it and everything that Stravinsky brought with his compositions. Balanchine was also very known for cross-sector and cross-cultural partnerships. He frequently partnered with other artists from other disciplines, from other dance styles. He partnered with the artist Isamu Noguchi on props and costuming for some of his ballets and set design. He also partnered with Martha Graham and Jerome Robbins. Martha Graham being from the modern dance world, Jerome Robbins being from Broadway-ish contemporary dance ballet world. And he just loved the collaborative atmosphere of what other art forms could infuse into ballet to make it more lively. Balanchine also embraced television and film, which brought ballet to the entire country. So while he was the artistic director of the New York City Ballet, he was making sure that his his performances were being filmed and recorded and then broadcast on TV, so that ballet would be able to be in everyone's homes, regardless of where you lived, regardless of the kind of access that you had to ballet in your state, let alone your city. And regardless of your socioeconomic status. There's a huge conversation in the ballet world today about access and equitability, because ballet was handed down to us from kings and queens in Europe, and when an art form starts that high up, we have to go through many years of breaking down some of the barriers that were in place to prevent some of those lower class people at the time from accessing it. So we're always trying to break down barriers currently, 400-year-old barriers to access to this art form. And Balanchine did exactly that by embracing television and film so much. He was really trying to make sure that he was stewarding the art form in America, not just where he had settled in New York. He did care about his audiences in New York, but he cared more about bringing it to the wider country and making sure that ballet landed here and was welcomed and embraced with open arms, not just a thing you hear about in these metro areas. And then finally, he's known for the Balanchine Trust. So, in his death, the Balanchine Trust was established, and this is the governing body for his legacy of works. And a little bit about how the Balanchine Trust works is, they are comprised of people who worked with him, who danced with him, choreographed with him. It's comprised of people who knew his works. They have a group of dancers who either danced for him or had works created on them or worked very closely with him, who go out and set his ballets. So you can't just, say, I want to perform Serenade, and then you go get a tape and set it on your dancers. You have to have somebody designated by the trust to come to your company, to set the work on your dancers, to rehearse them and make sure it looks good, to provide casting decisions. They go away, you can rehearse it on your own for a little bit, but before the show, they come back and they make sure that the piece is still in good order. The people who are setting are called repetitors, and they are stewards of Balanchine's work. So they really have the final say about whether or not your dancers are ready to perform, whether or not you are going to be able to perform it. If a piece falls into disrepair after they leave and it isn't able to be brought back to the level that it needs to be before the performance, they do have that right to say, you're not going to perform this then. There's a lot of integrity that rests on their shoulders, and they do take the job seriously. Sorry about this light here. There we go. Balanchine work is incredibly difficult. You have to have the highest quality and caliber of dancers in order to do the work, because you can get injured very easily doing it if you don't have the stamina, the strength, the flexibility. It's dance that is pushed to its limits. So the trust takes that seriously. They're not going to let you perform works that your dancers will not look good in. You might request work and they'll evaluate your company. They'll look at past recordings of some of the works that you've done and judge whether or not they think your company is up to the task of performing the work you selected. If not, they will recommend other works that might be more appropriate in their eyes. And then sometimes you do get the selection that you want, but there's always that, that respect that we have to make sure that the dancers are up to this before we proceed. And then Balanchine is also incredibly known for his eye for talent. So, as he was growing up in the Ballet Russe, and he was exposed to all of these high class, high quality artists, and he was around the best talent all the time, because the impresario was just building all of these people. He wasn't just letting anyone in to the company, he was picking the best. And that's what Balanchine is known for in his legacy at the New York City Ballet. He picked the best dancers, he cultivated the best dancers, and he cultivated this crop of dancers who have, since leaving the company and since having their ballet careers, they have dispersed all over the world, in fact, and started schools and companies of their own, and they are to this day spreading his legacy now. So on the famous female side, he has Allegra Kent, Gloria Govrin, Meryl Ashley, Kay Matzo, Suzanne Farrell, Maria Talchief, Kelsey Kirkland, Patricia Wilde, Patricia McBride. There's just, the list goes on. And on the male side, Jacques D'Amboise, Jacques Soto, Ebe Anderson, Peter Martins, Edward Villela, Arthur Mitchell, Ethan Stiefel, and so on. There's so many to look at. And if you look at that period of time, between the New York City Ballet's inception and Balanchine's passing in 1983, all of these dancers came through in that time window. I think this picture is of Balanchine and Arthur Mitchell in rehearsal. And I just want to read you these couple of quotes about Balanchine. This one says, "There is no such thing as a Balanchine dancer. Someone else invented it. People like to put titles on things so that they know what they are. Why can't you be on your own? You are first somebody. My dancers are just good dancers with well-trained, nice bodies, intelligence, musicality, and exceptional technique. In all the arts, it is the same. You need a good violin with good intonation to play a Brahms concerto." So this was Balanchine speaking about what is a Balanchine dancer, because even to this day, you will hear people refer to dancers as, oh, that's a Balanchine dancer, or that's a Russian dancer. We classify them based on, how they look, how they move. There are certain things I feel that you can see in someone who is well trained in Balanchine or well experienced in it. But Balanchine didn't like the title Balanchine dancer. He just said, I have great dancers and they do my work well. He didn't like that characteristic. He also said, it is not a style even. I was brought up in St. Petersburg by wonderful teachers with elegant dancers. We learned how to behave and dress. We had the best choreographers and teachers. He reflects on continuity and the long lineage of his classical inheritance as well, and says, I brought the right thing here. It is not just a style, just the right, best thing to do. The rest is not right to me. So he's famous for being very, direct, succinct, to the point. What I'm doing is the best. I don't feel that anything else, even comes close. And that's just how I feel about it. So, as all great artists do, he was confirmed in his beliefs. He was, convicted and just said, this is what I think is right. And this is what I'm trying to bring to people. And I think it really resonated with a lot of people. So we're going to switch gears here. We are going to Ebe Anderson because in the first timeline when we were looking at that, Ebe Anderson and Balanchine crossed paths for about 3 years. And so now let's look at Ebe's heritage. Ebe is an undaunted artist. He is, his career is marked by challenge. He was a child prodigy when he was young. He became the youngest principal dancer in the Royal Danish Ballet at 20 years old, which is extremely young for anyone to become a principal dancer, male or female. Just as an offside, principal dancers usually happen between like 24, 26, after you've had years of experience, after you've cut your teeth a little bit and performed in the corps, in the soloist roles, and the demi-soloist roles, maybe tried a few principal roles here and there. It's very, very rare to just straight out of school be a principal dancer. But that was the kind of talent and physical and artistic talent that Ebe had. He was also Balanchine's last male protege. So, as I said before, Balanchine was known for sourcing talent from all over the world and bringing it to his company. He sourced Ebe Anderson from the Royal Danish Ballet and brought him to the New York City Ballet. Ebe is the artistic director of Ballet Arizona. He has been with us since 2000, and this is his 21st year with us. Ebe is also a Balanchine repetiteur. So remember I was talking about the Balanchine Trust and those group of repetiteurs that are responsible for shepherding his pieces. Ebe is also one of those trusted repetiteurs, which is why Ballet Arizona gets to perform Balanchine works, is we have a repetiteur here with us as our artistic director. He can oversee the company and make sure that we are up to speed and up to the challenge of performing these works. Ebe Anderson also shepherded Ballet Arizona's growth from a small town company to a company that is nationally recognized. As we go into more about Ballet Arizona in a few minutes, you'll learn that, Ballet Arizona started from the bottom, the literal bottom, and he has brought us to a place, that we would have never have dreamed of 30 years ago. And then Alistair Macaulay, a New York Times dance critic, said of Ballet Arizona and Ebe, it is one of the most enterprising companies anywhere. So for Ballet Arizona to be reviewed in the New York Times is amazing, because that's an honor in and of itself. So a brief look at the timeline of Ebe in America. In 1980, Ebe Anderson came to the New York City Ballet from the Royal Danish Ballet to work specifically with George Balanchine. Like I said, he was a very young principal, so he excelled in his craft, and he was always hungry for more. And Balanchine at the time was producing the most challenging ballets, working with the most talented dancers, and cultivating this excellence, artistic excellence. So Ebe, of course, wanted to come here to work with him. In 1990, Ebe retired from dancing due to a hip injury. In 96, 97, he took a hiatus from ballet and wanted to pursue his other art form of choice, which is painting. And in 2000, he became the artistic director of Ballet Arizona. So diving in here. This is Ebe Anderson in George Balanchine's Apollo. Apollo is one of the more famed male solo roles, male principal roles in Balanchine ballets. It's very challenging. You're alone on the stage. You're responsible for carrying the entire ballet because it's about you. And it's very technically demanding. And Ebe was known for doing this role extremely well. So Ebe joins the New York City Ballet in 1980. He is a technical and artistic proficient. His career in Europe flourished, and that's how Balanchine heard about him and decided that he wanted to bring him here. When he first came here, at the invitation and request of Balanchine, he dived straight into the repertory and learned 35 ballets in his first 3 months. That is insane. When you think about the kind of learning that happens right now. In our company, people might be shocked to learn that we're doing maybe 3 ballets at a time over the course of 2 or 3 months. Ebe learned 35 ballets in his first 3 months. And I'm not talking about 5-minute ballets. These are like 15, 20 hour-long ballets. They are very long, very arduous, very technically demanding ballets. And the fact that he just jumped into 35 of them is crazy. The New York City Ballet is well known for being very, very prolific performers, and he was certainly up to that challenge. Ebe proved to be a natural Balanchinian dancer, and he had several principal roles created on him by Balanchine himself. So there's a difference here between doing a principal role that already exists and having a principal role created on you. So, those roles that are created on you are going to be choreographed in a way that is best for your body. That is a dancer's dream, to have a role created on them, because you're going to be in the best situation possible to look your best on stage, to perform your best, to be pushed to your best. It's very different than stepping into a role that was created on somebody else hundreds of years ago. And Balanchine had several created for him, notably Ballade, David's Bon Lutanza, and Mozartiana, and more. Ebe became known for his effervescent and unaffected stage presence, and particularly his brilliantly executed batterie. So batterie is we call it beating in dance, but it's where you move your feet and legs very quickly so that you can do multiple flutters in the air when you jump. Ebe had very excellent batterie. That's due to his training, his Danish training. The Danish technique is known for producing very skilled jumpers and unaffected dancers. And by unaffected, I mean just very strong in the classical art form without having, the intense flourish that maybe a Russian trained dancer would have, or, the coquettish kind of style that maybe a French dancer might have. The Danish dancer is just very unaffected, very pure classical dance. And that's what Balanchine loved about Ebe. And that's what audiences too loved about Ebe. In his 10 years with the company, he appeared in some 60 ballets and garnered lots of critical attention and praise. Ebe became a dancer first, and then he tried his hand at a ballet master and then became a choreographer later in his life. In 1998, I mentioned Ebe suffered a hip injury. He returned to dancing after that, but ultimately decided to retire 2 years later in 1990. After his retirement from performing, Ebe began a second career as a guest ballet master. So what this means is that Ebe was in the studio rehearsing dancers, making sure that the pieces were set, they didn't lose any of the material, watching footage, translating that for the dancers so that they knew what to do. He was basically the artistic director's right-hand man, right-hand person to make sure that the work is being translated. He traveled all around the world. He staged ballets by August Bournonville, by Michel Fokine, Jerome Robbins, George Balanchine. He set lots of works all around the world. He also had opportunities to choreograph, and he choreographed for the Royal Danish Ballet, for the New York City Ballet, and for other companies in Brazil, Slovenia, Flanders, Norway, and Japan. So he was taking the opportunity to travel, to see what else was out there, and to see where his career was going next. He also taught at the English National Ballet School after his period of traveling, and then spent 2 years as a ballet master with Pittsburgh Ballet Theater under Patricia Wilde, who was another famed star of New York City Ballet. In 1996-97, after his Pittsburgh Ballet Theater ballet mastering, Ebe decided to retire from ballet and take a hiatus from it completely, and he moved to Arizona. And many people ask him why. Why would you move to Arizona after you've been all around the world and seen all of these places and lived in these huge metros? And he said, I moved to Arizona because there was no winters. There's just this clarity of light that doesn't happen in other places. There's vivid colors, and he just absolutely loves the desert. I think he's an Arizonan through and through now, although he still loves to travel, but there's something about this place that just speaks to his soul. And he clearly says the environment burns into your soul, which, we all know is literally and figuratively true. For 2 years, Ebe focused on painting and sculpting, and took an occasional choreography or staging job in between. Like I said, he was still a Balanchine repetiteur, so he would still receive requests for him to go set and stage Balanchine works around the country and the world. So he took an occasional job here and there, but he really focused on his own artwork, which was painting and sculpting. In 1999, he heard that Ballet Arizona was performing Giselle, which is a ballet he had just finished staging in Montreal. And he went to go see the company perform, and he ran into friends who told him that the company was looking for a new artistic director. And he applied, and he got it, is the short end of that story. He applied for the position. Within 6 months, he was approved by the board. And at the time, Kim Sterling, a former board member and co-chair of the search committee, said, "We've received several applications and the caliber has been quite high." So, there were dancers, choreographers, ballet masters, dancers of high quality all around the world applying for this position. But when Ebe threw his name into the ring, they knew that he had to be the one to head the company. He was chosen in part because he presented the clearest artistic vision, according to Kim Sterling. And I wanted to share that with you so that we can talk a little bit about more what that means. Ebe's quote on his artistic vision was, "I want ballets that move people and leave them with something. It will be a mixed repertory based in the classical tradition with new choreography that is made on these dancers." So, thinking about that statement, looking at it, it doesn't seem like a very clear artistic vision to some of us, lay people who might not know, what does any of that mean? It seems very vague and open-ended. And, at first glance, it's true, it is vague and open-ended. But at the same time, he wanted Ballet Arizona to be a mixed repertory company, which means he wanted them to be classically competent, but also have the flexibility, the strength, the stability to be able to flex and do contemporary works. And he was also interested in choreographing new works and being a part of being a part of what ballet is transitioning into. We can't classify this period of time right now because we're in it, but I'm sure 20, 30 years from now, we'll look back and this period of time that ballet is in right now will have a name, just like the Baroque period. But he was interested in forming, Ballet Arizona into a little piece of that history. He didn't want to just exist and do repertoire that existed. He wants to actively be involved in the transformation of the dance world, which was at the time amazing and still continues to be great. But Ebe Anderson said, I think the company should have its own face, but to find that will take some time. So, when he was newly appointed to the artistic director position, he wanted Ballet Arizona to be its own company with its own look and feel, with its own presence. Because at the time, and we'll dive into that now when we look at Ballet Arizona's history, at the time we were looking at 3 different companies. They were trying to absorb it into other companies and be offshoots of other companies. He wanted Ballet Arizona to be its own thing for the people of Arizona and just for the art form in general. All right, and now moving on to Ballet Arizona, a young company's rise. This is our dancer, Jillian Burrell. She's been with us for quite a while, and you probably have seen her on our stages and at Ballet Under the Stars. We are Arizona's premier ballet company. We are performing classical, neoclassical, and contemporary works. We have about 30 professional dancers, a studio company, and a school. And we are born of very humble beginnings. We were formed in 1986 from a merger. In 1999, we had a huge financial crisis, of which Ebe was hired right into, and he helped us get out of that. In 2010, just 10 years after we were, inches from closing our doors, he brought us to national recognition with a review from the Times. And here we are, another 10 years later, 11 years later, surviving a pandemic. We're still going strong. We are a scrappy company, I think, but we're always getting stronger, getting better in every single way. And it's really due in part to Ebe's leadership as an artistic director. So Ballet Arizona's beginnings in 1986, we were formed from the merger of Ballet West Arizona, which is an offshoot of Ballet West in Utah, Phoenix Ballet, which is not the current Phoenix Ballet that exists, but one that was a long time ago, Phoenix Ballet, and a company called Arizona Dance Theater, which this merger was orchestrated by a man named Alan Rosenberg. We were originally directed by Jean-Paul Comelin of the Stuttgart and Milwaukee Ballet, and Malcolm Byrne, who was a New Zealand dancer. The company was guided to its initial early success until 1992, when a man named Michael Uthoff succeeded Jean-Paul Comelin as artistic director. Michael Uthoff continued to grow the company through the 90s, but he had tensions with the board and unresolved debts that ultimately brought about his resignation. So Uthoff is not without merit in his career with us, but he had more challenges with the company and more issues than credits in the history that I've looked through. The company was in crisis at that point. In June of 1999, we made local headlines here with news that we had missed our payroll and were over $800,000 in debt. We were struggling until September 2000, and the ballet was faced with a crossroads. It was raise $60,000 for the next payroll and $300,000 additionally, or we had to shut down and close forever. The debt was that extreme. At that point in time, Ballet Arizona Chairman Emerita Gwen Hillis launched an all-out campaign to save the company. On the left here is Ebe and Gwen in good times following that crisis. Our angel donors carried the momentum of this campaign forward. Children from the school sold toys and clothes, and the Arizona community banded together to save the ballet company. We met our goal. We met our payroll and our financial obligations thanks to the support of the community. And we started our rise thanks to the generosity and spirit that people displayed. And a fun fact, Patrick Swayze was here in town and he held a gala on our behalf at that point in time, which I had no idea. But Patrick Swayze even fundraised for us too. We achieved national recognition in 2010 when the New York Times reviewed our Balanchine production. Ballet Arizona performed at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. That same year for their Ballet Across America 2 program. We presented Eve Anderson's new ballet Diversions, and it was reviewed very well. And then we made our New York debut at the Joyce Theater in 2012, where we presented Eve Anderson's new ballet play. So we have performed in both Washington, D.C. and also New York, and also been reviewed in several New York Times articles since Eve's tenure. And here we are surviving the pandemic. As everybody knows, I won't go too much into this, but last year we were forced to shut down about 3/4 of the way through our season, and forced us to cancel the remainder of the 1920 season. We've rallied together with our staff, with our donors, with our dancers to just stay strong and build our bridge to the future. We have had digital offerings over the year. We've had in-person performances in very limited and safe capacities as recommended by the CDC. And we are right now looking at our first full-length production in over a year happening next month at the Desert Botanical Gardens. So if you're interested, we are currently selling tickets for that. We're going to be presenting the 4 seasons at Desert Botanical Gardens in the end of May. So we're so excited to be here, and we're so lucky and grateful that we have the support of such a wonderful company. And that's the end of my presentation. So I'm going to stop my share and just see if anybody has any questions here in the last couple of minutes. I know I blew through all of that, but it was really interesting to see how these 3 histories coalesced into what Ballet Arizona is currently doing and performing today. So I'll sort of stop there and see if anybody has any thoughts, comments, or questions. Don't look like I have anything in the chat. So I'll just continue from here. If there's no questions, Ballet Arizona is incredibly lucky to have all of the relationships and the partnerships and just the ability to do what we do here in Arizona. We love partnering with the city of Goodyear. We love being able to perform for everyone. We love being able to have these digital streamings that we've been doing since the pandemic started. And we are looking forward to a bright season ahead, in sharing some of our more dire parts of our history. It's really hopeful and heartwarming to see how far we've come in just 20 years from having to almost shut our doors. So, it's all thanks to the Arizona community. It's all thanks to all of you. And we're grateful to be your ballet company. Thank you. And I think I'll hand it off to Guyleen and Patty, unless there's any questions on YouTube.
Well, I just want to thank you, Alexandra, for presenting. I know we've been back and forth, and I'm glad that we finally got you on here. And it's a lot of really good information. I had no idea, so thank you for presenting. I think we had some really good information, and appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. That was great. And I like I told Guyleen, it was awesome to research all of that for my own personal reasons. It was a cool history to learn.
That is great. That is great. One of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to just let people know about next month's hot coffee.
Okay.
It will be on May 25th, and we will have Patty Greitz, who is the artistic director of Pro Musica Arizona. And she is going to be talking about what does a conductor really do, a look behind the scenes. And basically, she's the conductor for a 70-voice choir and a 45-piece orchestra. And basically, she's just going to talk about what an orchestral and choral scores look like and how to follow. And actually, people are going to kind of learn how to their hand at conducting. So people will join us for that. That would be great. That'll be at 7 o'clock on May 25th. All righty. I'm not sure where Garlene is and Rosie, but I think we can probably close out, and thank you again. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.
All righty. Good night.
Good night.